Open your ears and lube up your butthole. It's time for the What Do We Call It podcast. Now, here's your host. It's Jmann. Welcome to the What Do We Call It podcast. I'm Jmann.
And I'm number one fan, Tim.
I have just shown you a video from Chicago of CPD, and they have parked a semi-truck full of expensive Nike shoes on a street in a bad neighborhood, predominantly black, and they left the truck there unattended and unlocked. In the video, you see 3 officers walk up, and one resident, man of color, is upset that they're entrapping black youth. And then the cop is saying, well, don't break into the truck. He's like, I ain't touching the truck. I ain't going to touch the truck, but you need to not be bringing this truck and get it out of our neighborhood and stop entrapping our young black males. You got enough of us locked up.
It's not entrapment. That'd be like me parking my car there with the doors unlocked. I'm not trying to entrap you or entice you to break into it. If you're a piece of shit, you're going to break into it. Most normal people that aren't pieces of shit aren't going to look at it like, oh, the doors are unlocked. That means I need to go in there and look around. You know, it's not even related to color. It's just your attitude.
Well, I may surprise you with my response to this.
Okay, let's hear it.
Well, I agree completely that if you're a good person, you don't have to worry about it because you shouldn't be breaking into trucks, and this just proves who's bad and who's good. Having the temptation to procure those shoes is a display of any alleged perpetrator or proposed possible perpetrator's moral fiber. However, this concept in and of itself is fucking bullshit. Because this could be one of the things, and I'm not saying it is systemic racism, but this is one of the things that feeds into the mindset of bleeding hearts that accuse the nation of being filled with systemic racism. So they parked that truck in a very black area of Chicago, low income. Mm-hmm. You're tempting people that have very little, that would be more inclined to think to steal because of all the things they want that they can't afford for one reason or another. Maybe it's because they were born to a single mother because their dad knocked her up and bounced.
And the government pays the mom to not marry the dad.
What?
No, that's what, I'm sorry, that's what that welfare shit is. It's basically, it's like, you don't need to marry the guy. You got pregnant, you were sloppy, you're a whore, whatever you want to say. You don't have to marry the guy. You don't have to make a family. You don't have to make things work. Here's money to stay single.
Well, no, it's more or less so that she's not homeless.
If she got together with the husband and tried to make things work, the father, and tried to make things work, she wouldn't be homeless because now there's 2 incomes.
How many women have you had sex with that you've never married?
Quite a few, but I never got pregnant.
Well, by happenstance, you didn't get any pregnant.
If I did get one pregnant, I would probably do the honor-bound thing and say, let's make this work.
Yeah, I tried that. How'd that work out for me?
Well, that's different. You got a completely different fucking case going on with you.
Well, not exactly, because a lot of people, that's what happens. And frankly, I mean, this is like the effect. The cause is the dad who knocked up the woman, talked his way into her good graces, into her pants, knocked her up, and then skedaddled. It's not a matter of the mom being a whore. It's a matter of the male not being responsible and being chicken shit and running. Now, if you want to sit there in a neighborhood that has a high crime rate and you have plainclothes undercover cops, you make them look and dress the part. They walk the streets and wait to see somebody doing something, but you're not leaving a truck of merchandise unattended. You can't rely on people to be good. Not all people are good. We're not inherently kind.
I don't think they're hoping people to be good. I think they're just hoping to catch people who would do this, to catch them early, catch them young, whatever, and be like, no, this isn't how you act. This is what happens when you do this. Don't do it.
You see how it's more of a chicken versus the egg argument than that, though?
I don't think a circle has a beginning or an end.
Right, but if the truck's not there and the kid doesn't have the truck to steal from, then he doesn't commit the crime because maybe he's doing it to impress his friends. Maybe he's doing it as part of a gang initiation.
Well,
these are inner city poor populations.
I guess I just don't understand that mindset of that type of
You grew up white and with a father in the suburbs. That's why it's not an easy mindset. You need to realize that These are poor people that have very little. Of course they're going to want free things if they think they can get them. It's not about being good or being bad. This is a socioeconomic issue, not strictly a cultural one.
Yeah.
These are disenfranchised people. These are less fortunate people. And yeah, they probably shouldn't steal to get them, but keep in mind there's not a lot of opportunity in that area, I'm sure. They want to fit in. They want to have nice stuff. That's what this is about. And you're taking advantage of poor people by duping them, essentially, into thinking, oh yeah, free stuff. I mean, you're enticing. Here's something you must want because you don't have the means of obtaining it yourself and you could get it for free. Yeah, who wouldn't want that? If I was homeless and hungry and I needed food and somebody left a fucking Subway sandwich on a bench unattended, of course I'm going to grab that shit because I'm starving. And shoes aren't really, the be-all, end-all of needs, but when you're young and you don't have a lot of larger societal sense about you, you're going to want to take shoes or jewelry or clothes, Now think of what I did for a living for the last 11 years. How many fatherless young black men do you think I met?
Quite a fair few.
Quite a few. Because right now I believe the single mother rate in the black community is 70%. Which is fucking disgusting.
I think they need to be taught some values, maybe. This generation. Not blacks, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But the generation that's upcoming.
Yeah, I see what you mean, but guy knocks up, girl gets scared, runs away. That's a tale as old as time. It's not just a new generational thing. And neither is poverty, and this is a poor neighborhood, and that's why I have a problem with this, and that's why I say it's enticing, because you're dangling the carrot in front of people that want to bite. Don't just teach them at an early age, oh, you got busted, don't do that. Give them the means to feel confident to try to reach for that brass ring. Give them the opportunity to raise themselves out of poverty. And yes, the cops have a job to do, but they don't need to necessarily go to a poor neighborhood and offer free goods like this as a sting. That's the moral quandary I have with these undercover operations. Now, if you want to entice Johns on the internet that are looking to fuck underage girls, knock yourself out. Those people are looking for trouble. They went searching for the underage pussy. They're pursuing it. You're not just like leaving a 17-year-old girl out on a park bench with a sign that says, we'll fuck for money, and hoping that somebody bites, which is the equivalent to leaving a truck full of merchandise unlocked in a poor neighborhood. It's like the cops are taunting these people. It's
Maybe,
almost,
maybe not.
Well, in a way, it's profiling. Because they didn't leave the truck of merchandise unlocked in a rich neighborhood. Who's to say that rich kids that are raised with all the privilege you ever wanted, all the opportunities that they could have ever dreamed of, but they're just bored because they've never had to work or want for anything because daddy birthed them with a silver spoon in their mouth. Rich people do stupid criminalistic shit all the time out of boredom.
Point that I have is just because this one video shows this truck is in a predominantly black neighborhood with low income, doesn't mean they haven't parked this semi-truck anywhere else. This is the one time that somebody recorded it and they hung around for the cops to show up so they could harass the cops about it.
Well, I guarantee you they didn't do this neighborhood at random.
Oh, I'm sure they've targeted specific areas.
That are a higher
But
crime
you'd
rate.
have to be a member of the police department and in on that particular division on that kind of an operation to know for sure what's going on.
Now I'm going to flip the script here. There's nothing wrong with what they did. Their job is to uphold the law, and should people that don't know any better partake in a crime, they should pay for what they've done.
That's where I've been coming from.
Yeah.
Should have been taught right from wrong.
However, doing this, and it shouldn't, erodes public trust. Not all the public, but a very specific segment of the public, and that segment of the public already does not trust the police and thinks that they're out to get them.
Well, that's because they've been brainwashed to think that, not because of what's actually happening.
Well, you think of where the highest crime areas are and what some of the highest incarceration numbers are from an ethnic standpoint.
Yeah, statistically, yeah, blacks commit more crimes.
So they go to jail more often because they don't have the money for a defense.
And then part of the reason that I've heard thrown around in theory is because they were taught from a very young age, you don't need to have a dad around. The government will give us money. You don't need to be responsible for your actions, all right? It's society, not you. And you're taught your whole life that if you want something, you need to go get it. You know, you watch all these gangbang movies and the rap culture and all that. If you buy into the image they're selling, then you're like, oh, okay, well, there's a truck with Nike shoes. Well, I want some Nike shoes. I'm going to get a couple pairs for my friends. You know, it taught that they don't have to be responsible. It's not their fault, you know. So if they do something to benefit themselves, that's fine. But, you know, if the cops do pick you up, that's because they're out to get you. It has nothing to do with the fact that you weren't taught morals or anything like that. You should know right from wrong. I mean, I think that comes in every basic human psyche, is what's right and what's wrong.
I'm afraid you couldn't be more wrong.
Then how do you explain the violent crime of South America?
I'm not up to date on South America.
Well, that's where MS-13 comes from.
Well, that's probably just another thing where those countries are predominantly poor, and that's what they were taught from day one. You want to be anything, you gotta be a criminal, you gotta do drugs or deal drugs or whatever. I'm not gonna sit here and act like I know all the psyche of everything going down there, but it's fucked up. I don't know what the family situations are like down there, but I'm pretty sure it's probably similar to what you have in some of the areas in the U.S.
So how is parking a semi-trailer full of Nike shoes and leaving it unlocked in a black neighborhood, how is that any different than, say, parking a truck full of food over off of, 7th Street or wherever, over by the homeless shelters in Minneapolis? Because it's something they think they need and feel that they want because of that need. It paints out, and I won't even call it the justice system anymore. Because I read a very interesting article today. I don't remember what it was. My only takeaway, because I had a hell of a day at work, was that a judge refers to it as the legal system, not the justice system, because there's no guarantee that there will be justice. But there is a guarantee that you will be caught up in the gears of the legal system, whose job it is to assess whether or not you broke a law.
Yeah, I think I've heard the term legal system a few times as well. I guess I never really thought that there was a difference between justice and legal systems.
So while it might not technically meet the definition of entrapment as, say, like an undercover buy, where they're predicating on the desperate nature of drug dealers to sell illicit narcotics to get money rather than get a real job. But it just speaks volumes about the adversarial nature of police work and why so many people are scared to see the cops. They don't want to deal with the cops. They hate the cops.
Again, a whole part of that is because that's what they've been taught their whole life.
Because I think it has less to do with the fact that they were taught to not trust the police as much as all they've ever seen the police do is arrest people and take them out of the community and look for reasons to put handcuffs on people, rough them up, and throw them in the back of a squad car. You know, I doubt they're just like, well, the cops hate you. And remember that. No, it's that the cops aren't your friends.
I want to say probably.
I was a cop, but I don't hang out with any cops. And there's a good goddamn reason why. Once you put on that badge, I have a hard time trusting that you can turn that off. That you're not going to see something.
Like a cop all the time?
Yeah, that I might do something that's borderline and then you become Johnny Buzzkill. Parking this truck here is not the same thing as doing a DUI checkpoint. I will never complain about a DUI checkpoint unless it makes me late for something. And if I'm out that time of night in an area where they're doing that, that's on me for having piss poor timing and not planning ahead. But seriously, DUI checkpoints. Love those. The little trailers that blink that you're going too fast that they park in fucking neighborhoods where kids play and ride bikes. Love those. Trying to catch meth dealers selling meth to kids near schools. I love those. But shit like this, come on.
It does seem kind of redundant, but like again, I think it's a stepping stone to catching those at an early age because it would probably be more prone to younger people than it would be to older people to try to steal from the truck because of the sneakers and all that. So maybe it's like, as I think I've said it before, it's probably not so much let's catch the big criminals. It's let's catch them early and teach them early on that this is not proper behavior. I mean, they should already know it, in my opinion. But the cops are probably like, if we can put this out here and we snag one or two, that's one or two that hopefully in the future won't be beginning and just participating in this kind of activity ever again. Hopefully.
Except I doubt they went looking for young kids just to teach a lesson. They were probably looking for grown adults that would do this shit, and they were hoping that if they bust them for this, they have a laundry list of other crimes they've done, and it's going to, take care of a larger issue. But seriously, in terms of teaching people to act better, proactive education is going to be way more beneficial than reactive education, because you can cull public trust that you actually care to try to earn back some of that belief that the police are looking out for you and not just trying to, drum up business to keep the jails filled so that they can still have streets to patrol and they don't, run their industry out. Because you already have a young inner city population that does not trust the police. Now, how can you try to build a rapport with them? Especially if you make it seem like you are out to get them and you're like, hey, setting you up, looking for reasons to put you in a cage, motherfucker. How did they get through to me about the dangers of drugs?
The DARE program.
The DARE program. They showed me that they care. And how did they do that? They proactively taught me about drugs, and by doing so, I felt like they actually gave a shit.
See, and growing up, my experiences with police and what I was taught about police through the school, because, cops would come to school and do Q&A and everything like that, is, they're there to do a difficult job. They're not out to get you. I learned at a very age. It's like, if I don't want to have a problem with the cops, don't cause a problem.
These cops were out to get you.
Yes and no, but I still don't see what they
because I'm gonna
is wrong.
I'm gonna wrap this up with a hypothetical scenario. The guy that's mouthing off in the viral video, saying about how he thinks it's disgusting and they're entrapping young blacks, he could have stood there and walked up to it and goes, "Holy shit, this truck's unlocked." And while he's just sitting there looking at he's barely touching it, right? I'm painting him out to be not intending to steal in this scenario. He's simply checking. And the cop walks up and sees it and then says, "Oh, were you going to steal from that truck? That part of town? That color of skin?" Do you think he's going to get the benefit of the doubt more often than not?
Probably not.
Probably not.
And I mean, I want to say, the cop give him a chance to explain, but I have to believe that cops that have worked that beat before, that know that area, are probably already, you probably set a prejudice already. It would look like he's casing the truck out. It's like, oh, okay, that's not locked. All right, let's see, this is unsecure. I mean, that's somebody who's casing a joint, so to speak.
But they're exploiting a weakness of moral fiber. Some people can't help themselves. Who's to say that as happy of a married man as you are, that if a woman who's like an 8 to a 10 in terms of looks starts coming on to you and not only is willing and able, has a place to go, and knows how to keep a secret?
Go on.
That puts you in a moral quandary. You could say easily, like, "Oh, I'm not going to cheat on my wife." But then you start going, devil's advocate, fuck, I know I'm not going to get caught, or I think I'm not going to get caught. That's when it starts to wear away at you. Kind of like, and I hate to go all religious on the bit, Jesus' 40 days of temptation in the desert. The devil just sat there and kept trying to entice him. That's kind of what's going on.
Yes and no.
So in that situation, you think about it. I'm not saying give me an answer, or because you're going to give a skewed answer because this is on tape anyway. But you have to honestly consider whether an extremely attractive woman who you would totally bang if you weren't married offers to fuck you, and as for all intents and purposes, you think you're getting away with it scot-free. Yeah. So I know we've gone all around and zigzagged like a fucking water slide through this episode with this issue. But I just have a problem with this instance. Because the minute I saw that headline, like Chicago police leave unlocked truck full of Nikes in poor black neighborhood, or high crime neighborhood as they put it on different websites, I just like, fucking come on.
I could see because you know more about that type of stuff than I do. I could see that you probably how you'd take it from that point. But from my viewpoint, which is I don't have that inside information. I just look at it like that's just who's gonna bite. It's like fishing.
I just think that it's an unnecessary opportunity to try to drum up business.
It could. I could deem it as unnecessary, but I don't think that makes it wrong.
Interact with the show on Twitter at What Do We Call It? That is at What Do We Call It? You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/group/What Do We Call It podcast show. For the What Do We Call It podcast, I'm Jmann.
And I'm number one fan, Tim.
And that's the end.